Good afternoon. Welcome back to Poetry Lockdown. We are at day 198. I'm really excited to share with you today's poet, who I featured one time before, Tracy K. Smith. Just a phenomenal poet, and one of those poets that I've realized as I've read her work over the past 10 years, I think when I was first introduced to her work, is that I'll read a collection of her poems and I'll be moved by them, interested in them. But then it won't be till I give it some time and look at them again that the collection in its full force really hits me. And that was true with one of her latest books, and then with a poem from this book, which is her very first collection, The Body's Question, that she wrote back in 2002. I think these poems were published. But this poem is a poem that she wrote to honor her mother, who passed away when I believe she was only 22 years old. And as we're getting into the fall season, it always seems like a time when I'm remembering loved ones who have passed away, and I just find this way that she has of remembering in poetry is really powerful to me. So I'll read it aloud and say a little bit about why I love it. Joy by Tracy K. Smith. In memoriam, KMS, 1936 to 1994, and I believe that's the poet's mother. Imagining yourself a girl again, you ask me to prepare a simple meal of dumplings and kale. The body is memory. You are 9 years old, playing hospital with your sisters. These will be my medicine, you tell them, taking a handful of the raisins that you love. They've made the room dark and covered you with a quilt, though this is the South in summer. The body is appetite. You savor the kale, trusting this one need. But the body is cautious, does not want more than it wants. Soon there will be a traffic of transparent tubes striking their compromise with the body. When you close your eyes, I know you are listening to a dark chamber around a chord of light. I know you are deciding that the body's a question. What do you believe in? It will rain tomorrow, as it rained in the days after you died. And I will struggle with what to wear and take a place on the bus. Among those I will only ever know by the shape their shoulders make above the backs of seats before mine. It is November, and storm clouds ascend above the roofs outside my window. I don't know anymore where you've gone to. Whether your soul waits here, in my room, in the kitchen, with the newly blown bulb, or whether it rose instantly to the kingdom of hosannas. Some nights, walking up my steps in the dark, digging for the mail and my keys, I know you are far, infinitely far from us. That you watch in the way one of us might pause a moment to watch a frenzy of ants, wanting to help, to pick up the crumb and put it down close to their hill, seeing their purpose that clearly. Days like this, when I don't know whether it's worse being weighed down by an umbrella I'm bound to lose, I wish I could pick up the phone and catch your voice on the other end, telling me how to bake a salmon or get the stains out of my white clothes. I wish I could stand at my window, watching those other dark bodies moving back and forth through kitchens or climbing stairs, heavy with the heaviness of the everyday. And hear that long-distance phonograph silence between words like salt and soak. Sometimes the phone will ring late at night, And I'll think about answering with the question, what's the recipe for lasagna? Sometimes the smoke off my own cigarette fools me, and I think it's you running your hands along the dust-covered edges of things. These logs, hacked so sloppily their blonde grains resemble overdone poultry, are too thick to catch. I crumple paper to encourage the flame, and for a brief moment, everything is lit. But the logs haven't caught, just seem to smolder and shrink as the heat works its way to their center. Getting to what I want will be slow going and mostly smoke. Years ago, during a storm, I knelt before the open side of a blue and white miniature house, moving the dolls from room to room while you added kindling to the fire. It is true that death resists the present tense, but memory does death one better. Ignores the flame, ignores the future, We sat in that room until the wood was spent. We never left the room. The wood was never spent. That was Tracy K. Smith, Joy. It's such a beautiful poem. It's a long one, so I'm not going to belabor you with my interpretations of the poem. I just want to say, I think what I love about this poem the most is the way it takes its own time, its own natural time. It's really it's almost like it reads like an extended multi-part letter from the poet to her mother. And I think that those closing lines, that I misstated, so I'm going to say them again, to me, really enact the poem beautifully. Like they kind of, are like a microcosm for the whole thing. It is true that death resists the present tense, but memory does death one better, ignores the future. We sat in that room until the wood was spent. So that moment is like a microcosm for it all. And she says, we never left the room. The wood was never spent. And it seems to me like this poem is kind of like that, like a little capsule, like a memory where she's allowed to carry on this conversation with her mother who has passed away. That's my take on it anyways. Thank you, Tracy K. Smith, for this beautiful poem. I think it's a great way to start out the month of October. And thank you all for tuning in for another Poetry Lockdown. Hope you have a good weekend.